Boom. Bow. Live on Facebook. Go to the page. And then remember it's a 10-second gap. Tis loading.
We're streaming live on Facebook right now, I see.
Uh-oh. All right.
We're here.
Are we?
We're right back at you one more time on In Brotherly Love. It's me, your best friend, J. Wendell Gordon, the Warrior Lawyer. And we got a great show for you this evening. We got a great show. Got some dignitaries in the house. We got dignitaries in the house. And we're going to start our show off tonight, ladies and gentlemen, with Keenon James. But before we do that, I'm J. Wendell Gordon, again, the Warrior Lawyer. I'm a dad, HBCU grad, and all the people love my 8-track radio tapes. So there you go. Yeah, from Morgan State University, the baddest, the boldest, and you know this. Who got next?
I'm going to go ahead and jump on the mic again. Here I am on daddy duty out in the field. Got the field cam going. Well, it's the car cam today, but it's getting ready to be the stadium stand, the stadium cam. But I'm Jeff Gordon. I'm a father. I'm a son. I'm an HBCU grad from Hampton University, the standard of excellence. So we got an outstanding show for you guys tonight. Like you said, we got these dignitaries. Y'all need to come on in, hear what they had to say, get your questions answered. Now it's the time. Get that information. Who's next?
The standard of excellence. What's going on?
The standard of excellence.
Ain't nothing about y'all. Hey, this is Jason. That's the voice, Gordon, the baby of the bunch. I am an HBCU grad. I am a graduate of the most illustrious university out of the three of these guys. The only one that's ranked in the top 2 in terms of HBCUs, and we're not number 2 this year. Home of your MVP, Madam Vice President, Kamala Harris, none other than the Mecca, Howard University. I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I am a uncle, I am a son, and I am a brother to these 2 gentlemen here. Hey, we, like Jeff and Jay Wendell have said, we've got a great show for you all tonight. We have our homeboy, Keenon James, who is a candidate for the 23rd District Delegate seat for the state of Maryland. I'm gonna let him introduce himself to you all so that you all can get familiar with this candidate who is very familiar, at least to where I live, because he represents my area. So go on ahead and take it away, Keenan.
Appreciate it. I'm a dad, I'm a grad, HBCU grad, the North Carolina Central University, that Eagle Pride amplified. Certainly proud to be here. Appreciate you all that you do, bringing in some energy, some new blood, some flavor. We're gonna do some big things in Prince George's County. You know what I'm saying? This is where I grew up. It's where I chose to raise my family. It's where I'm choosing to make an impact in my community as well. So I'm here talking real talk. Let's get right to the subject. Let's get to the real meat of the matter. As I tell my little girls, I take 5th grade questions. I'm gonna give you 3rd grade answers. If I can't make it simple, then I'm not the right person for the job. Let's do this.
Okay.
Okay. Well, after Jason's introduction about Howard University being the top 2, I think I got to do a number 2. But anyway, we're glad to have you here, Keenan. That Hogwarts University people, man, they get so off track.
Hogwarts, man. Wow.
But anyway, Keenan, this show is about you right now, and you decided you've been doing a lot of public interest work. This is what I know about you. You work law enforcement. You're a gun violence survivor because your brother was killed, Sean, who was a dear friend of mine, I must say. And you've taken that tragedy and turned it around to something that is meaningful, that is helpful to other people. Without stealing the show from you, just tell us a little bit about your professional background, and then you can talk about your family background as well.
Absolutely. So as you said, I've been working in criminal justice reform, policing reform for about 2 decades. Literally, when I was an undergrad, I started doing research on it. And so I've taken that energy. I've been a part of justice reform, policing reform, North Carolina, Alaska, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Utah, really looking at the system. And one of the things that I really recognized as I was working on sentencing reform and policing was that victims were left out. And I belong to that group of victims. 28 years ago, July 15th, 1993, my brother was shot and killed in Tacoma Park, Maryland. A shooting that to this day remains unsolved. So we clearly got to get police doing police work and then get our communities doing public safety. And so that's what I really want to focus on is what can we do to keep our community safe? Number one, without over policing, and number two, without mass incarceration. Two things that gotta go. When I look at the issues, when I think about where we are in the state, how we set the tone, you know, we're talking about marijuana right now, and they like to say legalizing. I say it's already legal. If it's medical marijuana, then you've legalized it. What we got to do is decriminalize it. And so we need to work in that direction, improve things for our community, and that's what I want to work towards. In particular, when we talk about real criminal justice reform, not talking about just policing and changing the culture of the police department, but I'm talking about changing the system that we know has flaws.
Now, you know what? I'm glad that we had you on, and I'm glad you had an opportunity to say what you said, because just knowing your background, I thought you were going to be lock 'em up, that type of guy. But I'm so happy that you recognize the problem of mass incarceration, especially in Maryland. I can't say this enough. Maryland incarcerates more African-American men than almost any other state in this entire country. We incarcerate more African-American men between the age of 18 and 24 than Mississippi, than Louisiana, than Georgia, than Alabama. I mean, there's almost no other state in this country that incarcerates more. And if you're in this criminal justice system, like I am, you see it every day. You fight against it every day, but you feel like you're fighting up against a brick wall. You almost feel like Don Quixote trying to address this problem. So I'm glad that it is your desire not to, as some would say, seek vengeance or revenge, but to do what's in the best interest of all Marylanders. So yeah, kudos to you for that.
Absolutely. I mean, and just like you said, if we have the money to incarcerate all of those Black men, then we have the money to educate all of those Black men. It already exists. We just need to put the money and the resources and the energy in the right places. And that's something that supports all of us, no matter where you are in the economic spectrum. As I tell people, I might put on the suit and tie and head down to the office in DC, but that's still a 45-minute ride of terror for me, because I'm still a Black man, no matter what. And I'm sitting there saying, let me just make it to work this morning. So we got to look at that.
It's interesting you say that's a ride of terror, because you used to be the director of NOBLE, and NOBLE is the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Officers. So how do you reconcile that feeling of terror with the good work actually that you did, because you're one of the best directors of this national organization? How you reconcile that?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things you got to do is be honest, be truthful. I mean, I've had to sit there with chiefs of police and sheriffs from all across the country and say, look, this is exactly what we're dealing with. And so what we have to continue to say is, look, this is the perception. You officer, you chief, you may think that it's one thing and you may say you trained to do this, but here's the reality of the situation. No matter what you say, no matter what you do, no matter how you're trained, this is the life that I'm living. And the life I live might not match your training. And we have to deal with that with officers who are Black as well. They know they've been trained one way, but when they take that uniform off, and I've met chiefs of police who've been pulled over, and they like, really? I got treated this way? It's a problem. It's a problem. And one of the things that I recognize, whether it's working at NOBLE or working with chiefs, is I can talk to the police, I can talk to the sheriffs, but the real meat of the matter is with those legislators that make the laws. Those officers are enforcing it. And that's why I'm running, is because I know that that change needs to happen at the legislature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, that's pretty dope. Now, one of your platforms is pretty, is near and dear to my heart. You want to invest in teachers, technology, and also tuition-free education and apprenticeship programs. What legislation would you propose, or what ideas do you have in terms of making those things occur?
So number one for me would be an increase in the rate of pay for our teachers. We need to raise that rate of pay across the state. It's a part of the blueprint for our recruitment and retention. We can actually make that happen I just think about what the governor proposed in a refund the police. If we got $600 million to pay more to police officers, then clearly there's money available to pay more for teachers. And we already know that the investment on the front end in education is far cheaper than paying for law enforcement and corrections on the back end. So the money is available. So I think we can invest in our teachers, invest in technology that supports our teachers and the infrastructure of our schools. We've got some great homes in Prince George's County, new developments. Our schools should reflect those new developments and the prosperity of this county as well. And so I think we can invest in that. And that tuition free, I think, is a key cornerstone for building generational wealth. Many of us, all of us, we went to school and we had friends that were struggling from semester to semester. I mean, they were just trying to make it happen. And so if we can build in tuition free and apprenticeship programs, because I will tell you right now, not everybody's going to college. That's the real deal. And I know that we need plumbers and carpenters and other trades as well. I also think that a part of those apprenticeship programs needs to be business management, because we're investing in entrepreneurs for our community, not just trades and tasks, but those are real entrepreneurs. And so that's what I think we can do. The blueprint for Maryland schools gives us an outline, and the legislature, I would support funding increase in those rates of pay, as well as some tuition reimbursement, some public service, debt relief. I think that's something that can be done as well for our teachers. They often invest in their education to educate our children. Let's invest in them too.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I'm all for putting those dollars back in the classroom, especially now we're in the middle of a negotiation cycle.
So day one, should you be elected, what's your first order of business? What type of legislation would you put in to the hopper to see if it can become law?
First thing I would do on day one is I get rid of no-knock warrants. That'd be the first thing I do, honestly. For me, I look at where it came from and how it's being used. We know that it came from the quote unquote war on drugs, right? So it started in 1975 under Nixon. It really picked up in the 80s. And I mean, to be honest, it has its roots in Black communities' crack epidemic. It's really a racially based tool. I mean, it says it's to avoid the destruction of any evidence or if there's a threat of safety. Got it. I understand what the law says, but that's one of those things that I will go in on day one to make sure that we go ahead and get rid of it. We can assess it then later and figure out if there's some tool and methodology and if there's some reason to use it, but that would be one of the first things I would go in day one.
And you coming in as a freshman means that you wouldn't have any committee assignments. What committee would you most want to work on?
So I want to be on that judicial committee, and I want to make sure I want to work through those and work with the leaders on those committees to really make an impact, specifically in public safety areas. And so want to look at things that are related to gun violence prevention, child access prevention right now. Hopefully that's going to pass in this current session. In Maryland, the law doesn't require you to secure store your unloaded weapon. The law specifically says your loaded weapon. If you got it, that's fine. But I'm concerned if my kid comes over to play at your house and they happen to find something. I want to make sure that even if you have a weapon, period, you secure store it, especially if it's unloaded. There are too many shootings that happen to children. I think last year was 369. I was doing the stats for work, 369 unintentional shootings for children under the age of 12. 142 of those children died. Unintentional shootings where they found a weapon in the home. That's something that we have to address to make sure secure storage. Just yesterday, 9 families from the Sandy Hook tragedy, they won a $73 million lawsuit against Remington. We've got to look at some of the manufacturers, what they're doing, how they're advertising, promoting, and look and see what we can do to help make our schools, our community safer.
Man, it seems like you're giving a lot of thought to this position that you're running for.
I've definitely given it a lot of thought. People are like, is this really what you want to do?
Right.
It's kind of what I told my girls when they asked me about it. It's my responsibility. I get them up every day and I tell them I'm setting you up for success. I'm waking you up. I'm setting you up for success. And this is what I want to do for my community and other kids. I want to go to the legislature, put the pieces in place so I can set our community up for success. And that's my focus. It's all about setting us up for success.
All right.
Hey, now one thing that you mentioned, and I thought it was a pretty good point, which is over policing. One of the things that I noticed whenever, and this is something that I've stated on the show, when we as African Americans, we get into positions of power, we have the tendency to do two things. We have the tendency to over police and over policy. So how would you find that balance to make sure that you're not over policying us so that we don't get over policed?
So I think that one, for the policies, that needs to be left at the local level. The communities need to make the decisions on what happens, particularly when it comes to policing. I know we've made some steps in the state regarding police accountability boards, but we need to really refine that and tighten it up a little bit more. The community needs to make those decisions as to how they want their public safety, because I don't think any community actually wants to be policed. They want public safety, but they don't want to be policed. And so I think we've got to look at that and ensure that we don't over police. One of those things I looked at when I was looking at the governor's proposal, which was investing in more officers. Well, investing in more officers puts them out on the streets and in our communities, and that's really not crime prevention. That's one of my issues with those proposals of putting officers on the street. One, you're just putting them into the community, creating more angst and anxiety. And number two, just to be honest, his proposal really only funded for 3 years. So that leaves it on the community to pay for it in years 4 through 30 when that officer retires. And so there's some numbers game behind that too, when we start talking about how much of this policing is going to cost us.
Oh, but Keenon, you're going to be representing definitely your district, but you're going to have a voice for the entire state of Maryland. And Maryland consists of more than just Prince George's County, as you know, more than Bowie and Upper Marlboro. But police on the street would be a good thing in Baltimore. In fact, that's one of the biggest concerns, is that there's no policing on the street. Police don't get out of their vehicles. And I understand what would be helpful in Baltimore is not necessarily helpful in Prince George's County. But there's going to be consensus building that needs to take place. How would you deal with a Baltimore representative and say, what you talking about? We need police on our streets. They just sitting in their cars. They looking at people sling drugs on the street, and they need to get out of their cars. So how would you build a consensus or an alliance with these individuals who represent these very troubled parts of our state?
Well, I think Baltimore definitely knows what Baltimore needs. And so sitting in Prince George's County every day, I can't tell you, Baltimore, what you need. So I've got to listen to those legislators, and they're representing their community. If they need more officers, if they think that that's the solution and that's what their community is asking for, I think that there are things that we can work together. But similarly, there may not be a need for more officers. There may be a need for more technology. There may be a need for more social programs that allow us to allow our officers in our community to do something different, not necessarily patrol. And so I think that we need to be able to open our eyes and understand what each community needs, but I also need to recognize what others are desperately in need of, and what may be a problem in one place could become my problem in another. And we've definitely seen that across the state. So to act like, well, because you got that going over here, we don't have that, we don't need that, we don't care, that's not going to work. We've definitely
seen a lot of that in Annapolis. It's a lot of that. In fact, Baltimore
is that
like
before. I mean, right now we're talking about ghost guns, right? So that was a Baltimore and a Prince George's County problem until it just showed up in Montgomery County's back step, and they were like, "What? We never heard it." Yeah, it exists.
Right. Good point. Good point. Well, man, it sounds like you're well equipped to handle the work or the business of our legislation. What other issues do you take issue with concerning our local government? How do you feel about small businesses? What can we do
small businesses?
In that area?
I want to definitely encourage small businesses, but build those in the development of our communities. When I think about things like health disparities that are in our community, but then I turn around and look at what restaurant and food options are in our community as well. And so if we got these health disparities, but the only thing that's ever opening up is another fast food or carry out, well, we aren't addressing the problem. So we've got to work with our business communities to attract and support those businesses that will help us address some of those health disparities as well. And so definitely we want to see more small businesses that are doing things that are equipped just for those people in that community. I want to make, food options available in the community, and not just fast food. There are many more options available. So I want to see some development around that, just like we put into some of these fast food options.
What can Maryland do to bring these types of grocers or markets to town? How can we court these people or solicit these people to have them come to town and say, look, your store would fit very well in this environment or that environment?
We got to have a hard conversation that deals with racial discrimination. Let's just be honest, right? Sometimes
Maryland's record on discrimination is horrible, despite what those in power think.
So we have to have that conversation. I mean,
And it's got to be a real conversation.
It's got to be a real conversation. It's got to be a real turning point. And the numbers are there, literally, for businesses to support. I mean, they are there. We can look at the numbers and say this business would sustain in this community. The problem is sometimes they're looking at the color of the customer base. It's in my particular district. And so that's a problem. So we've got to work with some of these corporate leaders, but also work with some of our locals that are operating some of these small businesses. We need some of those franchises. We need to be able to support some of our community members in order to get the capital to open some of these franchises and businesses in our community. And I believe that we can do that at the state level to help provide some of those resources to support small business owners and giving them those opportunities.
Last year or the year before, Mary Ann Lasanti from Harford County, I don't know if you remember this. She called Prince George's County an N-word district, and she was a delegate in Harford County. Prince George's County wasn't offended enough for me. How did you feel about that situation? You remember that?
I do. You know, it's one of those things where you got to take offense, right? Because if you just allow somebody to call you whatever they call you, then they'll treat you however they want to treat you. And so it's one of those things. Even now, I'm cognizant to make sure I say Prince George's County, because PG has this bad connotation to it. No. I live in Prince George's. I live in a royal regal place, and make sure you say my name all the way. And so I think that you got to address some of those things. I think that they are conversations that have to be had. They may not be in the public, but sometimes you got to let people know where you stand personally to make sure that they don't come for you and they don't come for your community, because your community is looking for you to step up and stand up and represent them and make sure that they get the respect that's due. So, you know, you got to make sure it's a little bit of a stink made when folks try to come for Prince George's County.
I think at the end of the day, she was censored, but she still sits up there in that General Assembly, and she would be in a lateral position to you if you should win your election. How would you go about dealing with this woman?
I mean, chin check. I mean, you got to give a verbal chin check. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to check that chin.
I don't think she's going to go up in there. You from that N-word district, or are you going to go up in there? Yeah, you say I was from the N-word.
Right.
Like, what you going to do for? What you going to do?
Know, I've got to definitely work within my delegation to make sure, you know, we're all together. And I think that collectively, we have a lot more power than some people may realize. And so there's some impact that you can make as a collective, definitely working with the caucus as well to address any of those concerns, because I think that that's a problem. I don't think it's reflective of the state. And I think that that's the message.
Are you kidding?
No, what I'm saying is all of the people of the state don't feel like that alone. And so I don't think we should just accept that. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying people don't look at the county that way.
No, I feel you. And that you're saying everything you're supposed to say, and I'm gonna say everything you're not. I think that Maryland needs to have a hard conversation about race. I think that given the wealth of this country, which really leads the nation, given the population of African Americans in this country, which is about 34%, given the fact that they make up 51% of the Democratic Party in a Democratic state, and we're fighting inequities in every field of human endeavor, from law to law enforcement to education to health. And you know what? Nothing would move in this state without African-American support. We always beggars sitting on a pot of gold, and our pot of gold is our strength at the voting booth, at the polling place. But we never can concentrate our power to really use it for good. Like, take the governor's race. We got all these folks coming out knowing that they can't win governor. They can't win, but they're interfering. And they're running interference, what? So that this one other candidate can get in. Maybe he'll get in. Kudos to him if he brings along an African-American with him. Kudos, to the extent that kudos apply. The bottom line is African-Americans need to become that monolith once again. They need to be able to speak with a single voice so that we can get the representation that we need. No question, Jason.
Look, I was going to say, so as our delegate, how would you go about building that coalition? Because right now, you know, we understand that we as African Americans, we're not monolithic. You know what I'm saying? And
But we
because
need to be. We should be. And we need to dispel that myth so we can stop believing it. But go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry.
look, I feel where you're coming from. Do we need to move in one direction? Yes. I do believe that we need to move in one direction. If we understand, first we have to understand the overall good that it would do for our community. And we have to look at our community as a whole. And I think what's happened in society and what has happened even with the African American community has been that of divide and conquer. With divide and conquer, so that, you know, some people will be like, yo, I done got mine, you need to get yours. And we don't look at it in terms of, look, I've got mine, hey brother, come on along so you can get yours too. And so how would you go about building that coalition in the delegate house, where there are even some African Americans that come from areas that may not be considered predominantly African American? How would you build the coalition with those people to move in the right direction that would advance the causes of African Americans in the state of Maryland?
I think one, we have to identify what we want collectively, right? And that, as you just alluded to, inside and outside of the Beltway don't necessarily want the same thing, because inside and outside the Beltway might be living a different life. Skin tone might be the same, but how life is treating them every day might be a little different. But the bottom line is we still want the same thing. We just might want it at different levels. We just might want this. We want the same thing, but really at different levels. I think we got to do some building to really identify what we want to work towards, and making it singular. I think a lot of times we come to, and we for good reason, represent your constituency, and you're working just towards your constituency. But I think it being a little more broad in your thinking and understanding, okay, collectively as a caucus, whether it's the Black caucus or the county's caucus, what is our agenda and how does it specifically relate? Like you said, if we're making up 51% of the Democratic Party, then that's a majority on what the caucus might need to be focusing on as part of that Black agenda. So we've got to build that into what is the Black agenda and how do we put it in place no matter where you are, because all of us are really subscribing to the same thing. It's just at different levels.
So what would be your contributions to the Black agenda? What in terms
one of those things I want to look at definitely is, you know, as we're looking at housing, for example, they try to say redlining has been outlawed. Okay, fine. That's what they say legally, but what happens every day? We need to look at that and make sure that that ban, that practice is out, and we're not devaluing those Black communities just because. So that's something that we want to look at, and it doesn't matter where you are. And we try to live in different neighborhoods, but sometimes I've learned, even if you live in a different neighborhood, if your family photos are up in that house in that neighborhood, your house is devalued, even though your neighbors might all be white. Your house is devalued. And so we got to look at that and make sure that those practices aren't allowable, acceptable. And more importantly, if it's a criminal and discriminatory, we need to address it. Mm-hmm. And that's a part of the Black agenda, no matter where you live in the state. If that's the type of discrimination that you are suffering, we got to address it.
Wow. Now let's talk about our seniors before our time runs nigh. Our seniors have difficulties making their payments on their mortgages, their rents, and paying for medicine, food, and things of that nature. What are your plans to address some of the concerns of our senior? Transportation is always a big issue, especially in Prince George's County. So how would you address that? Or what are your ideas? What I know you don't have all the answers, but what are your ideas?
Definitely don't have all the answers, and I know that some things are coming down from the federal and how we make adjustments. When I think about seniors and their incomes and what they're able to sustain off of, and you know, sadly, many of us seniors are living off Social Security. I mean, that's a struggle in and of itself. So we've got to look at those options, how we're able to build generational wealth and support our seniors as well. But as you said, and I indicated earlier, we've got to look at how we're building and developments in our business and commerce, and how we're actually building out communities and including seniors in that build out, in that development, so that groceries and those services are readily available. I like to see our schools used differently. I think we've learned a lot from the pandemic. And one thing we've learned is that you don't always have to centralize the operations. You can have people out and they can be in the community. And our schools are another resource where instead of saying, hey, you got to go down for us Upper Marlboro in order to get something, there should be some of these schools can be leveraged as a resource center to make some of these resources available so that our seniors aren't trying to go places and and manage that as well. We need to be in the community, helping our seniors, identifying what may be their needs, and then immediately putting in those solutions as well. So from those transportation, resource availability, access, and not just access for seniors. I'm caring for my own mother, so I'm learning more and more about what is available for seniors and people with disabilities, as well as healthcare needs. And I've got to manage that on top of being Jeff. I got daddy duty stuff going on as well. I got husband duty stuff going on as well. So trying to make all those resources available so that we can support our seniors as much as possible.
And we're thankful, unlike Jeff, that you showed your face.
Hey, look, and while we're on the subject, just briefly on veterans, what can we do to offer more support to our veterans? So there's a high level of PTSD in the veteran community and other mental health issues and challenges. They even kind of seep into the judicial system, and they're not really getting the support. I can think of one person who, anecdotally, who I represent right now, is not getting the support that he should be getting as a veteran who's suffering from these illnesses and just got entangled in the talons of our judicial system. What more can we do to assist our veterans?
I think we've got to do a lot, and not just, for our veterans specifically, and we've got to make sure we use programs and resources that get to that particular population. But when I think about it in the work that I do on a daily basis in gun violence prevention, and I think about the suicide numbers, I mean, that's a high number of individuals. And I see a lot of veterans who have mental health issues and concerns. And so what we have to do is be real about it. I think we finally decided that mental health is a real situation. And so as a society and as a community, we've got to invest in it and not stigmatize it anymore, and recognize, okay, let me help this individual, because there's a stigma behind it. And we've slowly started to get away from it. Again, that's another thing from the pandemic, that finally we got in the house, we sat down and we realized, dang, mental health does really matter. Because when I had to sit in the house all day with my kids, I damn near went crazy. So it's a real thing. And so finally, we're stepping up, and we've got to make those resources available to support our veterans, both for their mental health, but also getting them into jobs. One of the things I've learned with veterans is they want to do the work. If you can give them the opportunity, they are some of the hardest workers. And so we've got to make sure that they're given those opportunities, but also support them with those medical resources as well.
Actually, Keenan.
Hey, look, you can even.
That boy good. Now, look, Keenan, we got to wrap it up for you right now. We got Congressman Anthony Brown.
And you can stay on too. If you want to talk
hang out a little bit, I can hang out a little bit. I know the congressman is coming in. It's his shine. I want to make sure.
So look, man, we wish you all the best, and yes, stay in our virtual studio audience and chime in when you feel the need. But look, we want to talk to the congressman, but it was great talking to you. And man, you are exactly what I said you were. You're a firebrand. You're not afraid to speak truth to power, and you're one of those guys that, man, when you enter a room, man, people feel you. They feel your energy. They feel your aura. And we like you because of the fact that you speak the truth, whether it fills a room or clears it out. So you keep on being you, brother. You keep on being you.
I appreciate
everybody in our district. If you live where I live, and those of you who know where I live, this is our guy right here.
If we go all the way from South Laurel all the way down to Rosaryville. So if you live along that 301 corridor, some of those larger communities, whether you're in Beechtree, Balmoral, Oak Creek, parts of Fairwood, down towards Shelterham, Rosaryville.
We're going to run the show.
Upper Marlboro. Let's do it. You can check out my website, KeenanForMaryland.com. 23. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Now, Congressman.
Wish you the very best out there on the campaign trail. I'll see you there.
I appreciate it, Congressman.
District 23.
That's
right.
There it is. Look, we got none other than the Congressman AB, okay? That's what I call him. He doesn't even know that. Call him AB because he's about his business. This is Congressman Anthony Brown. And look, it's a little different this time. Although he appears to you this evening as a congressman, by the time we get to November, he's going to be our first Attorney General of the state of Maryland who happens to be African-American. And he's got a big responsibility. We saw the likes of this with, what's my man in Minnesota's name, Congressman?
Keith Ellison. We served together in Congress. Yeah.
So he was in Congress. He became the Attorney General of Minnesota. He prosecuted George Floyd. Yep. Anthony Brown. Whew.
Well, hey, look, it's great to be on with you. campaigns running strong, and we're engaging voters. We're talking about the role of the Attorney General, whether it's public safety, crime fighting, addressing things like the incarceration of Black men, particularly, or whether it's making sure that the blueprint for Maryland, that new education equity bill that the legislature passed last year, it wasn't easy. But the difficult part is going to be implementing it, and then the Attorney General role is going to have a role in that as well. So our next Attorney General's got to focus on equity. He's got to focus on the Black community. He's got to make sure that everybody, no matter your zip code, your lived experience, you're going to be a part of the success story of Maryland, and that's why I'm running.
You're going to be a busy man. I'm going to tell you right from the start. I believe the Attorney General's powers have expanded to, I think you guys are prosecuting police officers now. Is that not correct?
Okay, what we're doing, the General Assembly gave the Attorney General's office the authority to investigate police-involved deaths. So it could be a car accident, it could be a chokehold that caused a death, fatality. But what they didn't do is they didn't give the Attorney General the authority to prosecute. And I think for many, we believe that the next step is if the Attorney General is going to investigate, then the Attorney General ought to prosecute, because you talk to prosecutors and they'll tell you they don't really like inheriting someone else's investigation, because their investigation is often shaped by their theory of the case and how they're going to prosecute. So I support that, extend it to the Attorney General, but give the state's attorney the right of first refusal. If they want to prosecute, if the facts warrant after the investigation and the local state's attorney wants to prosecute, let them do it. I mean, they do 95, 99, 98% of the prosecutions in the state, let them do it. But if they're not going to do it, or they can't do it, maybe it's so complex, it's in a small county somewhere in rural Maryland, the Attorney General should be able to do it.
All right. So, and I think I agree with you. I don't think that the power should be usurped from the local state's attorney. I do believe that they should be able to prosecute if they so choose to, but if they're not going to do it, and it's one of those cases that either are high profile or pretty egregious, then yeah, I do believe you should step in. But check this out. I want to talk about something else. You are a congressman. What the heck do you want to be Attorney General for? What? I couldn't make that work for me, Congressman. I can't make it work.
Like Cedric the Entertainer couldn't get the curl to go over.
No, you remember 16 years ago, I was in the Maryland General Assembly.
I remember.
And I was a delegate. I was vice chair of judiciary. Then I was majority whip. And I had, I was making things happen. I was setting the agenda. We were working on some good things, getting a lot of things done. And then I ran for lieutenant governor. He said, why are you doing that? Right? I mean, you got to easy reelect in the House of Delegates. You're setting the agenda. You're influencing the conversation. And the answer then, just like it is today, is I can make a bigger impact as lieutenant governor than I could as a member of the House of Delegates. And I believe firmly that I can make a bigger impact as Attorney General than I can in Congress. We've done a lot in my office, my congressional office. In fact, this year we're going to begin removing the names of Confederate soldiers from our military installations. Fort Benning, Fort Bragg, AP Hill, Fort Hood, Fort Rucker. Those names are going. They're Confederate traitors. My office did that. We led the effort on that. There are a lot of things that we've done in Congress, but I can make a bigger impact on things that I've been championing and fighting for the 20 years I've been in public service. As you know, Attorney General's office, you got 700 professionals, 450 lawyers, 250 support staff, investigating everything from, healthcare, housing, consumer protection, antitrust, as we talked about before, big piece in public safety, criminal justice.
Law firm in Maryland.
Big impact. So I'm coming back to Maryland to lead a group of professionals in doing good things for Marylanders.
All right. So, the field is pretty competitive to a certain extent, but I was a little embarrassed by the fact that a relative of Martin O'Malley, your governor, decided to jump in the race. I don't know how much you can talk about it. I know you guys say it's the First Amendment right of everybody to run for it, but that shit was messed up, bro. What?
You know, I've heard that from a number of people. Look, the only thing I think say is, you know, in primaries, you often find yourself, and I'm sure Keenon is finding this out himself, you know, people who you've worked with or you've been close with are all of a sudden on different sides. But this one is probably as awkward as it gets, you know. But look, you know,
you're like the best man at the wedding. And then,
my wife Carmen and I, you know, friends of the O'Malley, certainly for the 10 years that we were campaigning and working together. But you know, that's how primaries go. And whether it was Judge O'Malley or anyone else, you know, we're standing up a competitive campaign. We've got endorsements throughout the state. In our own backyard in Baltimore City, Baltimore County, we've got endorsements. We're starting to roll out major labor endorsements. We just got endorsement from CASA in Action, as you know, big immigrant rights advocacy group. And to me, that was a really strong progressive stamp of approval. So, you know, we're running a competitive campaign, and, you know, we're feeling really good about where we are, leading in the polls, although I understand a poll is just a snapshot in time.
No, the polls end up being pretty accurate. The polls end up being pretty accurate. And I'll tell you the truth, in terms of who I would like to see as Attorney General, it ain't Judge O'Malley. In fact, you know, I don't even want to see Judge O'Malley in the courtroom. I'm requesting a jury trial, okay? You're just taking her jurisdiction from her. And I know this is being recorded, but look, I don't try my cases in front of Judge O'Malley. So you make your decision on who you want to be. If I thought that I could get everything that I'm supposed to get for my client in front of Judge O'Malley, I'd be trying my cases in front of Judge O'Malley. I don't try my cases in front of Judge O'Malley. I demand a jury trial. So y'all figure that one out.
Good Lord. Defense attorneys are such the bad guys, yo.
Anthony Brown.
Lord have mercy.
Look, I'm going to tell you right up, this is my endorsement. If it's between Judge O'Malley and Anthony Brown, I'm going with Anthony Brown. If it's between Anthony Brown versus anybody, I'm going with Anthony Brown. I'm sorry.
But you might as well have added, but especially against Judge O'Malley.
But what scares me the most, Congressman, is that I don't know who's going to fill your seat. Who have you been grooming?
So look, there are 4 people who are running, you've got Delegate Jazz Lewis. You know, he's in the General Assembly, young, energetic. He's worked on some healthcare issues, following up on some of the things that I started in the General Assembly. You got Glenn Ivey, an attorney. He's got a lot of public service under his belt. I defeated him to become the member of Congress. Donna Edwards.
You ain't had to say that.
Yeah, you know.
Yo, there is so much shade. That's the second time that I've caught shade twice.
Twice?
Twice. I'm not going to repeat it, but I caught it.
Coming back. She was my predecessor. She's coming back, and then Angela Angel, who was in the House of Delegates. So look, I've told all of them I'm not endorsing in that race. I need everybody. You know, look, it's gonna. The good thing is, it's going to remain in Democratic hands. You will continue to have an African American representing the 4th congressional district, which has, you know, I think it's about 6 with the new redistricting. I don't know what the percentage African American is, but it was about 60% in its current configuration. And so that's the good news. And it's a competitive race. The voters will decide that one, obviously.
That sounds just like an elected official. Look, when you become Attorney General, we have issues with the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. And Brian Frost has definitely dropped the ball on that. He said he was going to investigate all of the cases of the medical examiner after our Maryland State Medical Examiner testified in the George Floyd case. He testified against George Floyd and on behalf of those condemned officers who are responsible for his death.
Can we stop saying this wasn't the George Floyd case, man? Let's not. The George Floyd, it was about George Floyd, but like, let's make sure that we talk about the officer. It's the officer's case. It wasn't.
They came to Maryland to find this expert who's in charge of every homicide, of ruling every death a homicide in our entire state. Every death from all over the state of Maryland goes to Annapolis. Every body goes to Annapolis. And when I say body, I'm talking about the actual cadaver goes to Annapolis. And the expert in the George Floyd case was our chief medical examiner. So he determines what the cause of death is. I'm asking Anthony Brown.
And it was quite outrageous, his testimony. I mean, I think all of us, like, it was a jaw dropping, like, wow. And so listen, if the current Attorney General has promised an investigation and it's not complete when I get there, I certainly will. I'm going to carry out all the pledges and commitments that he made. I think the key is to understand what authority does the Attorney General have in terms of oversight of that office. And if I don't have the authority that I need, then I'll go to the General Assembly and get it to make sure that, I don't want to send a message right now that every finding or report conclusions that came out of that office under his leadership is somehow now tainted and wrong. That would be a bad signal, and I don't think it would be accurate. But if an investigation is warranted when I'm Attorney General, if it's not completed, we'll do it. If I don't have the authority, I'll go to the General Assembly and I'll get it. Because it certainly suggests, given his poor judgment in that case, that maybe it's certainly worth looking at in cases in Maryland. And I'll use this as an opportunity to say that, and again, distinguishing myself from Judge O'Malley, this is why you want someone with my experience as Attorney General. Courtroom experience is important. 20 years as a judge, that's laudable service. But the Attorney General, you got to work with the Maryland General Assembly. Right. And where there's not authorities, you got to work with them to get it. We talked about the authority to investigate and then prosecute police officers that are involved in misconduct and someone dies. There's all sorts of stuff that the Attorney General has to go to the General Assembly for to get authority to do. And I've got experience 8 years in the General Assembly as a member, 8 years Lieutenant Governor in Annapolis. I understand government. I've represented, advocated, and fought for the people. So it's really that kind of experience. Brian Frost had legislative experience. In fact, Joe Kern had legislative experience, right? Yeah. Judge O'Malley's dad. He was leadership in Senate Judiciary. By the way, he happened to be Lieutenant Governor too. So, to the extent we think highly of Joe Kern, think about his background experience, looks a lot like mine. But I
don't think he went to Harvard University.
Oh. Don't hold that one against me.
But it ain't no HBCU. I mean, the real HBCU is Morgan State University, which brings me to funding of HBCUs. Mm-hmm. What's your position on that?
My position is that lawsuit went way too long in 24. And I don't say that just sort of after the fact. When I was running in 2014, one of the pledges, the commitments that I made is we were going to end this lawsuit and we were going to settle it on grounds, on terms that were acceptable to our 4 historically Black colleges and universities. So this isn't anything new for me. I mean, that it went on for 10 plus years is beside me, and that no governor, either Governor Hogan or any governor before him, settled at even close to, or was willing to settle at close to the $577 million that eventually was settled. That's troubling to me. And Governor Hogan was coming in at $200 million. He vetoed the first settlement bill in Annapolis, and then finally he let it go and he took credit for it, which is, that's par for the Republican courts. I'm telling you, we see it on Capitol Hill. Nobody in the House of Representatives, maybe a handful of Republicans, supported the infrastructure bill. They're all out there breaking ground and cutting ribbons on all sorts of projects. But HBCU's top priority. My assistant AGs who are going to be assigned to the Higher Education Commission and the University System Maryland will understand my values. We protect and defend, support, and promote our HBCUs. There's going to be no duplication of effort that works against our HBCUs. And the money's been authorized, and every year it'll be appropriated because it's on, I think, a 10-year basis to make sure that our HBCUs get their funding. And it doesn't, we don't fund them in that settlement and then take away from their typical annual appropriation. They get that plus some.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Deal. Yeah.
Let's talk about consumer protection. Are you pleased with the direction our consumer protection advocacy has been going in the state of Maryland?
Look, as a general matter, the Consumer Protection Division in the Maryland, also the Attorney General, does get high marks. It really does. It's a challenging division because it's the largest division. It's the most active. It is like the consumer facing, the constituent facing division of the office. So whether someone feels as if they got a raw deal on an automobile purchase.
I just got a call today about something like that.
You get that. You have elder abuse issues. You've got concerns about price gouging now that's going on. Some of it may be, increased because of inflation, but we also know that there are businesses out there that are taking advantage of the situation we're in, and they're engaged in price gouging. Certainly want to support the effort of the Consumer Protection Division. I need to get some additional authorities. That price gouging authority, it's about to lapse if it hasn't already. I'm assuming that the legislature will address it this session, but if not, I got to come in and say, look, I need that authority. But it's probably one of the most important divisions in the office because it impacts the day-to-day lives of more Marylanders than perhaps anything else that office does.
Mm-hmm. So recently, the House Judiciary was looking at legislation, this bill number 292. I think it's 595 on the Senate side, but don't quote me on that. It deals with collecting information and data about professionals with licenses, just getting their race information to determine in disciplinary matters, to determine whether or not discipline is meted out fairly and equitably. How do you feel about things like that?
Look, and that's an interesting issue. And let me say this, in Congress, okay, and I sit on the House Armed Services Committee. And what I know and what is known to those who are watching the military justice system, if you're a young Black airman enlisted in the Air Force, you're more than two times more likely to be prosecuted for the same conduct or misconduct of a white airman. What's that? And so I introduced legislation, said I want to take a look at it. More likely to be investigated, prosecuted, convicted, although the sentences are pretty much equal, which is kind of interesting. So I introduced legislation saying I want data, gender, age, and rank breakdown at every step in the military justice process. When a commander decides to send a case to a court martial, I need to know who he's sending. When the judge or the jury, because there is jury trials, panels, convicts, I want to know who they're convicting. Same with sentencing. So I do think that data is important by race, ethnicity, gender, even gender identification, sexual orientation, to see where in the criminal justice system we see the bias that is resulting in the over prosecution, over sentencing, over incarceration of Black people. So I do think it's important. However, having said that, you got to make sure that that data is used for its intended purpose. Okay. And it's not used in a way that's going to sort of undermine this effort of greater transparency and accountability to get to a better result. So as a general matter, I do think we need more focus. There's a bill in Annapolis, and I know you mentioned one, there's another one that wants to look at judges. And
yeah, that's the same bill.
Okay, the same bill. So here's the thing. So I think that Governor Hogan introduced that because he wants to politicize it. And he wants to say that judge isn't sentencing harsh enough. And that sentence is, that's the wrong reason to pass that bill. The only reason to pass that bill is to see where judges, and I would extend it to others in the judicial system, the criminal justice system, but in this case, judges comparing sentences. How are you sentencing young Black men? How are you sentencing young white men? That data I
don't think that bill covers that data, and maybe I'm wrong. I could very well be wrong. I don't think it covers. It covers the data of the judges receiving discipline for their own misconduct. So that's what I believe that is. But what there
is an advocate down there, and I was reading it in the Daily Record recently, who is making the point that I'm making. That,
okay,
look,
good.
We need to be looking at the disparate treatment, the different sentences that are imposed.
I see it every day.
The conviction rates, and all that stuff. The plea bargains, who's getting plea bargains, who's not. You got to look at it by race, ethnicity, and these other factors, because we know that there is bias in this criminal justice system. That's why I fought to repeal the death penalty in Maryland. Too many Black men were on death row. Now, we didn't have a big death row, but it was disproportionately Black.
So and life sentences for
life sentences. I mean, all data shines the light, I think, on a system that's not working. Our criminal justice system isn't working the way it should be. And I think that kind of data can help.
Good point, man. You must have been prepared. You must have read my manual or something. Shit.
The warrior lawyer.
You saying all the right things. I guess.
No, I got a question for you though.
Uh-oh.
You graduated from Friendly High School, as did my wife. But you've invested all of your energy, your passion, your skills and talent in Baltimore. And I love Baltimore City, but like, I mean, not at the expense of like my community down here in Prince George's. What's that all about?
Well, I attended Friendly High School. I actually got expelled from Friendly High School and graduated from H.D. Woodson High School. I went to Morgan State University and then the University of Baltimore Law School. Thought I was going to be working for Jack Johnson, but when I was helping him out to win his campaign to become state's attorney of Prince George's County, I sent him my resume. He sent me a form letter back saying he wasn't hiring. So, I ended up in Baltimore. I got stuck in Baltimore, and Baltimore's been so good to me. But I have a lot of good friends at Friendly High School. My older brother graduated from Friendly High School. He's taking a little hiatus here. But I'm not a Baltimore attorney. My office is in Baltimore, but I'm all over the state.
Got it.
I'm from Montgomery County to Allegheny County to Wycomico County. I'm literally all over the state. Today I was in Harford County and then made my way down to Montgomery County. Tomorrow I got to be in Prince George's County and then up in Baltimore County. I'm all over the state. But you know, I love Maryland. That's what I know. From the ocean to the mountains. I love Maryland, and that's why I'm so happy that you decided to run for this office. I was a little confused in the very beginning as to why one would want to be a congressman and then turn around and want to be attorney general, but you made it very clear that you can have a greater impact on the state by being attorney general, and I got to respect it. In fact, I admire it. So kudos to you. You deserve all the commendation for your service to our state to try to make it better, because we definitely, we are a state that we've tricked ourselves into believing that we're just this awesome state. No, that's our potential. But right now we're not awesome. Right now we're sick, and we need people like you, me, Jason, and Keenan to nurse us back to health. Because we have. And for
people who didn't understand or believe what you just said, all you have to do is look at our experience through this pandemic. I mean, the pandemic really, you know, shine a light on the disparities that exist between Black and brown, Black and white in Maryland. I mean, you know, the lack of access to technology in our schools, the health disparities, higher infection rates because we're more of the higher percentage of essential workers, and we didn't get the protection we needed, and the higher hospitalization and death rates because of underlying chronic diseases that have been out there for a long time. I mean, so our unemployment was higher and still is in the pandemic than the white community. So if you didn't believe it before, then you need to believe it now, because the data during this pandemic shows that disparities exist in Maryland, and we got to get after them.
Yeah. And so interestingly, in this primary, and I say this all the time, and perhaps it's only wishful thinking on my part, but we got African-Americans running for governor. We got African-Americans running for comptroller. We got African-Americans running for attorney general. We got an African-American who's the treasurer. What would Maryland look like if all four of these African-Americans took these top spots? Would we look the same? Who would we have to blame if things didn't change?
And you didn't mention Adrian Jones.
Oh yeah. Speaker of the House, Adrian Jones. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
man. What would our excuse be then? If we couldn't get us back on track? If this
is an historic election in the sense that we haven't seen vacancies in all the constitutional officers, governor, lieutenant governor, comptroller, treasurer, attorney general, in a long time. It's already historic in that sense, but we can make history by finally electing an African-American to statewide office. And there are 3 opportunities to do it. I like to think that I've got the best chance, but I don't want to be alone.
Well, you ain't got much competition out there, so I really, it's yours to lose. You can snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory, because if you can't beat Judge O'Malley, man, I'm coming after you myself.
But like I said, we're out there fighting for and earning every vote. We're not taking it for granted. It's a competitive race. So we're working at it every day.
Jay Wendell, man. Lord have mercy, bro.
Anthony Brown, I want to thank you so much for allowing me to banter the way that I have. I know it's probably offensive to some, but hey, I don't care. I'm a defense attorney. I can say what I want. So, look, thank you, Keenon James. I really want to thank you, man. You give me inspiration. I know you're younger than I am by maybe 10 years or more. I don't know what it is, man, but
more than 10 because
really
you old.
encourage me and inspire me to be a better me. Anthony Brown, I'm looking for you. I'm looking for you to be successful. And quite frankly, there's no alternative to Anthony Brown as our next Attorney General and the first African-American Attorney General. So we're wishing you great success, and I want you to win. I think
I appreciate that. We're going to work at it every day to make sure that happens.
Yeah. And so that's going to wrap it up tonight for In Brotherly Love. My name is Jay Wendell Gordon. I'm the Warrior Lawyer, and we'll be right back at you next week. And Jason, you got it from here?
Yeah, because I'm going to have to step in since Jeff ain't here.
I know. What's up with him?
We'll talk about that offline. But hey, folks, this has been Jason, that's the voice, Gordon. On behalf of In Brotherly Love, thank you again, Congressman Anthony Brown, my homeboy, Keenon James. Thank you for coming in and sharing your platform and sharing your enthusiasm, because truth be told, that's very refreshing, even as a politician and you're jumping into this ring, to see a politician that's passionate about what they believe in, and then to know that you're not the stereotypical politician. So, I appreciate you, brother. Anthony Brown, we got to do it, Chief. We got to do it, yo.
I'll get it done.
Jay Wendell has now soured me absolutely to whatever competition is out there. So, Keenan James, if you could give us parting words, and then we're going to close it out with Congressman Anthony Brown.
I think it's all been summed up that, let's make history. Let's do it. We have the potential. As Jay Wendell said, let's meet that potential. Let's maximize that potential. And like I said from the start, it's our responsibility to set up the next generation for success, not talk about what they can be successful at. Let's do the work. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen now. Keenan James, District 23.
Let's get it.
Let's get it.
Let me just say, make sure everyone gets out there, register to vote, get out there and vote. General Assembly is going to make it easier to vote by mail this time. Vote by mail, vote in person, whatever you need to do, because by voting, that's the only way you get the privilege to complain about your elected officials. If you ain't voting, then just keep it quiet. Yeah, we all seem to like to complain from time to time. So just go out and vote.
Yeah, not voting is not a sign of protest. It's negotiating your surrender. And Anthony Brown, forget all that. Get out there and vote. Vote Anthony Brown, okay? Vote Keenan James. That's what we're doing. We don't just go out there and vote. Vote for the right candidate that's going to make a difference in your life. Vote Anthony Brown, vote Keenan James, and that's it. I'm out.
All right, I'll see you. Take care.
That man was in 3D when he said that, boy. You see his head shining like that, boy. Good God Almighty. Hey, In Brotherly Love, we out before I start roasting this man.